this time, New Year's was fast approaching. One of the perks as working as a civilian for a contracted government job is all the vacation time, not to mention the large company Christmas parties, picnics, bonuses, overtime. I couldn't have asked for a better place of employment. Bettina and I were still doing great. I had loads of cash in my pocket, perfect credit, and was free to do anything I wished. And what I wished for was to spend the near 2 weeks off in Key West, Florida. Besides, I had earned it, and there was no one else I would have rather spent it with. The trip down was surely going to be interesting, especially considering that just outside of New Jersey, my brand new clutch blew. Or so I thought. I didn't know it at the time, but the clutch fork pivot bolt, the little knob that the fork uses for leverage to disengage the clutch plate, had severed. This was the car's first real road trip since its completion, and I'd installed a high-performance pressure plate, which had apparently stressed the pivot bolt a little more than I had anticipated. Luckily, I could still tell that the transmission was able to shift using a method called synchro shifting. It's when you rev the engine until you can slide it into gear. Starting from a dead stop, however, isn't possible unless you turn the car off, as you cannot easily shift a manual transmission into first gear while the engine is running. But hope wasn't lost, as this problem could be bypassed without the key. Just get it rolling while it's in gear. I chose to use the starter to do this, seeing as how it was brand new. It was actually rather impressive that this method worked the entire way to Key West. Sure, I may have melted the battery wires in doing so, but I was dead set in getting there. It worked, we made it. The DC stop-and-go traffic was an absolute bitch though, but hey, one of the benefits of knowing your machinery. Call me determined or call me stubborn, I just make things work. The only thing that sucked was having to teach Bettina how to synchro shift on the fly. It was a full 24-hour drive, so we kinda had to share the responsibility. It didn't bother me though. I loved watching her drive my car just as much as she loved being behind the wheel. We made it to Key West as planned and on time, and it was beautiful. We drove straight through the night, getting there at the butt crack of dawn. We ended up parking the RX-7 at a rental place and simply waited for them to arrive. They loaned us a Chevy Silverado, which we later used as a hotel after realizing just how expensive and how few rooms are available without reservation on such a crowded holiday, but even that still cost me a fortune. Key West is a pretty interesting place for covering only 4-mile by 7-mile patch of land. At the end of each night, everyone gathers at Duval Street for the Sunset Festival, where a bunch of street performers and walking beer vendors make their living. And the views, oh my god, truly the best sunsets you'll ever see. Bettina and I had loads of fun. We did all the various activities, jet skiing, snorkeling. We even visited the Dry Tortugas, a huge brick island structure that used to be a lookout. Then came New Year's Eve, the night I did the unthinkable. So Key West. Completely unbeknownst to either of us until we actually got there, the place is actually a gay mecca. Not that it bothered either of us, but this was going to open the way for me to finally experience what it's like to play for the other team. And I do so at the stroke of midnight, no less. So there Bettina and I were, trolling along Duval Street while trying to score her some alcohol. We obviously weren't having much luck at the bars, so we decided to try the many traveling beer vendors along the way. Some scrappy-looking guy pushing along a tub eventually caught our attention, so we covertly scurried over and managed to persuade him into giving us several bottles, almost for free. See, Key West does the whole Mardi Gras bead thing, where the girls flash guys for cheap plastic trinkets. Well, for as many beers as we were asking of him, he wanted to catch a glimpse of Bettina's lower half. She was in the short denim skirt, and I, of course, was all for her lifting it up. She had on this skimpy butterfly thong, and as soon as the guy saw it, he set his price for the booze. He wanted her underwear. Personally, I thought it was hilarious, and apparently so did Bettina, because she dropped her drawers and handed him right on over. We quickly got our buzz going and continued making our way down Duval, where we eventually came to this little cart selling those blinking belly button rings, and Bettina wanted to stop and have a look. The guy was pretty swamped with customers. It was shoulder-to-shoulder mayhem as far as the eye could see, and I was getting drunk, so I sat in a stool and began selling them for him. I asked the cost of each of the items that people were trying to buy and was handing him the money as I got it. To this day, I still don't know why in the world Bettina got so mad at me for doing this, but after an argument erupted as they often did, she took the hell off. Just like that, she went her own way and left me there. I honestly did go after her, but she was long gone by the time I realized that she wasn't coming back. Add the fact that there were so many freaking people that you could barely move, it was nearing midnight and the main event was about to occur, there was just no way for me to locate her. See, in Key West, they have their own custom for the stroke of the new year. Similar to how New York City drops a ball, Key West drops a conch shell, but with a drag queen in it. I could tell that it was nearing time, because the crowd was so thick that I was basically stuck right where I stood. And that's when it happened. Standing there amongst everyone with our heads pointed upward towards this flamboyantly blinking spectacle, this burly-looking guy glances over at me and smiles. Sporting a thick mustache and dressed like a bushwhacking hillbilly, he wasn't exactly what I'd consider to be my type, had I been gay. Nonetheless, he's the one I caught smiling at me, so I smiled back, which caused him to approach me. In a very southern, heavy accent, he leans in and tells me that I'm cute. I must have been struck by his comment, because I don't fully remember what the hell I felt in response. Unlike the guy that was hitting on me back in Ohio, who was far more subtle, this guy just came out and said it. And you know what my response was? Wanna go somewhere? Just like that, I blurted out the words as if my mouth spoke for me. Maybe I felt that I could get away with it amongst all the gayness surrounding me, or maybe I was still mad at Bettina for taking off. Or perhaps I just finally wanted to act on the notion. Anywho, so the guy, seemingly surprised by my response, quietly said that he regretfully had to decline because he'd come with someone. I casually said all right, and off he went. Only several minutes later, he returns, taps me on the shoulder, and then puts his plastic tiara on my head while rushing me. Okay, let's go. The fork in the road, which I so often found myself eating life with, had just gotten two of its prongs bent sideways. I was now on the path never taken. He had me follow him to one of the porta-potties through the sea of half-naked men, trannies, and cross-dressers. Somehow, none of it seemed to bother me in the slightest. We rushed in and locked the door behind us, where I, being the slut I was even back then, went straight for his belt and dropped to my knees. Short of turning this into a porn flick, all I'll say in the matter is that when he came, I had my eyes closed, and all I saw was this flash of colored lights behind my eyelids. It'd be a lie to say that going down on a guy wasn't one of my hidden fantasies, because it was. So after he was done, he insisted on returning the flavor. However, despite what I'd just done to him, having him go down on me wasn't what I was after. And here is where I really began to question my motives. Sure, it felt good. I mean, what guy doesn't like getting his dick sucked? But something still wasn't right, and it almost amplified my unease concerning any sexual act containing my junk. Afterwards, we simply zipped up and casually exited the stall. I never got his name, nor did I want it. Still a little lightheaded, I tried making my way back through the crowd to once again look for Bettina. The conch hadn't dropped yet, so I made a quick round the best I could, but the entire island was now at the square, waiting to bring in the new year. I really did give an honest attempt to find Bettina, but perhaps it could have been better had I not been trying to justify what I'd done by convincing myself that I was still mad at her for abandoning me the way she did. And seeing as how I was still angry, I wasn't about to miss the event looking for her. I figured that she returned to the truck, unaware that Key West even had such an occurrence. So there I was, once again standing there before the drag queen, watching her act all stupid atop this blinking contraption, and that's when I suddenly got the distinct feeling that I was being stared at. I looked ahead of me to find this hot-ass European guy standing against the wall, and he was indeed watching me. I don't care what gender I was at the time, this guy was smoking. He was young, tanned, had no shirt on, he was ripped with muscles and had this short and spiky blonde hair. He just looked at me and smiled. "You're pretty sexy," in this hot and flirtatious Euro accent. And considering what I'd just done with the other, less attractive guy only minutes prior, I didn't hesitate to repeat my offer. "Thanks. Hey, wanna go somewhere?" to which he happily replied, "Sure." This time I led the way back to the line of porta potties. I may have even ended up in the same one. I don't remember. We scurried in, people everywhere. They must have seen us enter together, but I didn't care. Once again, I went for his pants, perhaps a little too excitedly, and he stopped me after only a quick minute, and then took control over the situation. He was obviously far more experienced than I was, and proved so as he pleasured me, but before turning me around to fuck me. Having him go down on me was again a little strange, but having him inside me, regardless of the entrance, was something that I really, really enjoyed. Meanwhile, as we're going at it, the stall's shaking something fierce, with people knocking on the door and cheering us on. Once we finished, we said our goodbyes. He left, and I stayed behind to clean up. I kind of felt this need to just sit there and think about what I'd just done. The aftermath was a little painful, but I had just been de-virginized. So after a few minutes of listening to the next person or couple bang on the door, I too finally exited. I had missed the conch drop, and it was now officially the new year. Finally interested in finding Bettina, I forcefully carried myself back to the truck where we were going to have to spend yet another night. She was there as I thought she'd be, only slightly pissed that I hadn't come and found her. I knew I owed her an explanation, so I explained how I was watching the conch drop. I wasn't about to tell her what else I had done, for the reality of it wasn't even going to hit me for quite some time still. So instead, I unfortunately did the scumbag thing, and told her that I was sorry, and that I missed her, and to make it up to her, I then fucked her all nice-like, and right there in the truck. I never intentionally meant to hurt her, but it was the same with every woman I ever dated. Once the 3-month mark hit, the honeymoon period was usually long over, and things like Bettina taking off were to be expected, and they were the reasons on which I blamed for the things I did, despite my actions having been done for a much darker cause. I was trying to figure out who I was. I cheated on what I fear to be every single girlfriend I've ever dated. Aside from all that, though, Key West is a pretty interesting place where chickens are able to roam freely. There are even schools and entire neighborhoods I highly recommend the visit. I hear Fantasy Fest for Halloween is even more crazy.